Hey, this is Notser. I want to talk about what's coming in the future. There was a developer interview, and he was in Russian, so this is all translation, but it's pretty exciting stuff. First off, they want to do more individual missions that are longer and harder. They also want to do some chain missions. Now, this kind of sounds like the World of Tanks mission system, where it's a little bit more in depth in what you have to do. You might be influenced to play a certain faction or class of ship, or perhaps play the game in a certain style, like maybe only fire AG, only fire AP, use harsh angling or a heavy armored vehicle in order to absorb a lot of damage, stuff like that. And if they're going this direction, that's very exciting. In World of Tanks, you progress through different class missions that have varying degrees of difficulty, and the ultimate prize is you will be able to unlock special vehicles that are varying degrees of higher tier. Obviously, the highest tier is much harder to earn, and you will need to perform much better in certain missions, but that idea is very exciting. It gives you something more to perform while you're playing the game, and this isn't something crazy. A lot of times some achievements will make you completely change the way you play the game. Best example, I would say, is World of Warcraft. There are a million different achievements, and some of them will negatively influence the way you play the game, and it hinders other players' enjoyment of the game. I don't really like that aspect of achievements, but if they can put in a mission system that encourages variety, and you're still playing the game, you're still trying to win, but maybe you understand the game more by trying to min-max a certain aspect, that's really cool, and hopefully down the line we get reward chips just like the reward tanks for World of Tanks. Another thing that they mentioned, they would like to have division members spawn closer, and they did not give a set date on when they wanted this done by, but I'm very excited because it's really annoying trying to play the game with someone in your division and you cannot coordinate an effective strategy to work together. You might as well not be in the same game. It's really awkward, and it really takes away from the teamwork aspect. It really just feels like you're trying your best to not be the one player on your team that dies in the first minute of the game. They didn't really say anything else other than they want division members to spawn closer, so that'll be cool. They mentioned maps. Now maps, love them or hate them, they add variety. There's about 5 maps currently right now. For the in-game, you have Islands of Ice, Two Brothers, North, Ocean, and Hotspot. These are maps that you constantly run into, because I'm in this tier range on all my ships, except for the premiums that you can see. You constantly run into these maps, and there's a little bit of variety, but man, do we need maps, and we need them bad. They're in the process of making 2 brand new maps for in-game. Didn't say what they were, but the only thing that we know is they're brand new maps. They're not reworking any maps and qualifying them as 2 new maps. They are going to adjust Islands of Ice, Two Brothers, and a little bit of North. They're pretty happy with North. I'm pretty happy with North too. A lot of my games will end up being posted from North or Hotspot because the strategies for those particular 2 maps are more developed, in my opinion. Islands of Ice is so infrequent that a lot of times it feels like the teams don't know exactly what to do, and I usually just rush for the islands that are in the northwest side of the map because there's a lot of coverage and it gives you a lot of power over the map. But not everyone understands that. There's a lot of different strategies. I see a lot of battleships trying to hide and go near the top of northwest on Islands of Ice, and they're outside of the fight. You really do feel useless when you're that far away from everything, and I would really prefer if battleships would stop going that area of the map. I know there's a huge island that you can use to just sit there and camp, but that's not what battleships should do. They're also making a winter north, just a direct copy of the north map. It's going to be half night winter with polar lights. This sounds pretty interesting. I don't know how far they want to take this. One thing I would love to see is a night map with flares and the AA fire. It would be so cool to see the reflections of battle at night in World of Warships. I'm excited. I'll play another version of North. North is a great map, especially when they added that gap between C and D. They really made the map nearly perfect for World of Warships. I can't really find fault with that particular map. And we know they're working on weather. We know that's coming. We just don't know when. That's probably 6 months to a year out, I think, just based on the way the information is released. Developers really don't like talking about stuff before it's closer. It's part of that marketing budget. It's part of getting you excited to play the game in a more relevant manner. They don't want to talk about something that might never make the game because it's just too far out, even though they're putting a lot of effort into it. They're going to put a new system for capture. Right now, when you go into a capture point, you have a baseline capture, no matter how far you are at the edge of the capture or how close to the center you are. What they want to do is they want to put in a 3-ring capture system per base, with the outer ring being the slowest and the center ring being the fastest. Specifically mentioned that they would like players to be closer together, and different ships have different roles. You would send your destroyer into the center because they would be hidden from view longer. A battleship might just stay near the edge because they're not really going to be able to fight or be near the center, just for risk of taking torpedoes or what have you. And I don't know how this will work. I feel pretty good about the objective play right now in the game. They took out all of the annoying draw mechanics, and it's really down to killing more ships than your enemy, and bonus of capturing the enemy base and putting pressure on them to defend if they overextend or move too far away. And that's basically where capture mechanics and objective play should be, in my opinion. It would be cool if they had a escort, assault defend type thing. That would be real exciting to have to defend a column of ships from the enemy attacking. It could be a merchant fleet trying to get to an objective and you have to defend them as they sail. I would hope it wouldn't be too annoying, but that would be a realistic objective that everyone would be excited for. My favorite objectives in any game is assault defend. They didn't mention anything about doing that, but I personally have seen merchant ships in-game, very old merchant ships, but merchant ships in-game that could double as AI. So, we'll see. We'll see. It's got to be on their radar. They just don't mention it, probably because they're afraid that it'll be unfun. The map border is getting a rework again. Did it actually get a rework? Let's be honest, okay? It's pretty awful. Right now, ships can drift, and you can't hit them. You just need to understand the way the player is playing. It's still an advantage to the player using the map border, and it's really crummy. It's not what a ship would do in real life. You're not going to run up against an invisible barrier and be able to go at full speed, okay? There's nothing realistic about this. At least it's not Battlefield, where you go out of the play field, you have 10 seconds to get back in, and then you're just wiped out. I don't like that either. So the solution they should try and work towards is to encourage players to avoid the edge. The edge should only be there as a visual cue that you're getting close to the end of the map. You should never actually go to it. There should be no advantage whatsoever. And it sounds like what they want to do is it's going to be like a softer solution. They're going to slow you down when you hit the border, and it's going to be harder to turn your ship. So you're basically going to be an easier target than if you were to not run up against the edge of the border. They didn't want to use an autopilot. That is a drastic thing. So we'll see if this softer solution encourages players to avoid the edge. Another thing that they'd like to do is they'd like to expand the ranking system. They're looking at targeting tier 5 and 6, the 6 and 7 that exist now, and then 7 and 8. I don't really know if you know, ranked play it's okay. 7 on 7 is alright. It encourages the game to end faster. I don't think the rewards are as good, and I don't know if they should be. I really like that ranked play exists in the game currently, and the system they've chosen is not a huge reward. Let's face it, flags. A lot of the flags are borderline useless. I would like to see a ranked system that rewarded the player to play it. It encouraged players to compete. Perhaps they would use it as a primary means to level up, especially since you cannot play ranked play at 9 and 10. So at some point you have to get out of it. But to keep your ship, you are asking a player to do a lot. Right now, credit income is terrible, and there is a solution that they've talked about, and I'll get to that. But in order to keep these ships, I think you should basically give the credit that it would cost you to just keep the ship straight up. Basically pay for all of these tier 5, 6, 7, 8 ships. Huge credit income. I would just love more ways that you could earn credits and doubloons in-game. I'm sure they'll add doubloon missions, especially as they get more complicated. And just build it out. Build it up just like World of Tanks. Get it up to the same level of rewards that you can see in World of Tanks, and perhaps it'll be more enjoyable for everyone, because I think across the board, the grind is the most annoying aspect of World of Warships. You can't even play tier 10s. They're so afraid of dying that they play super passively, and the game isn't fun for anyone when they do that. So let's just move towards bigger rewards that players can take advantage of. They mentioned that they would like players to be able to sell the ship modules. I'm talking about range upgrade, hull upgrades, propulsion upgrades, the turret upgrades, torpedo upgrades, anything that you attach to the ship that allows you to spend your XP. Whenever you sell a ship, you're just selling that ship. You're not selling any of the modules that you've attached to it, and that's a lot of income that's just disappearing. It sits in an invisible depot right now, and in 5.2, so 2 patches from now, they would like to be able to have the player automatically sell these modules when they sell the ship and give back that credit for the player. For me personally, I'm tier 8 and 9 on all my ships. That's a lot of dough that I would have. It's just so much stuff that is sitting there not being useful, and every single time I have to grind credits because that is just the most limiting factor. The premium ships are fantastic. If you're good at the ship, it's an easy way to earn credits. But it's time invested in not leveling other ships, and that is really what I'd like to do, so I can share those experiences with you. Hopefully this is good for everyone, and it's really exciting. I don't know if this is the final solution. Oh, looky there, that's an interesting use of words. I don't know if this is going to be the final situation for the way modules are handled in the game, but anything that increases my overall credits, I'm all for. And there's nothing negative about this system. They're not going to have an accelerated captain training in the foreseeable future, and that's, you know, that's a way for them to make money by encouraging you to spend doubloons to convert that XP to free XP. Right now, they're going to do everything in their power to set up systems that can't be exploited, and I don't think they feel comfortable with the captains right now. It's a much different system than World of Tanks, and it's a lot less overall XP, I believe, invested than World of Tanks. So if I could just convert all this XP into Commander XP and double the speed, I would basically have tier 19 commanders, top tier, and no effort would be put into it, especially opening up these brand new lines, having a max level captain. Can you imagine the power that you wield over others? It's probably something they want to avoid until the game is, more seasoned. They've discussed putting objectives on the map, stuff like airports, coastal batteries, anti-aircraft placements that you could capture and use for your team, That sounds exciting, of course. Anything to make the game more interactive when you're on a map, I'm all for. They're targeting getting team battles out this year. Now, are they actually going to get that? I don't know. We're pretty close to the end of the year. You're basically going to be in November by the time you can address 100% towards making a new content patch, because you'll be addressing bugs or anything to deal with the brand new lines that they're introducing. You want to make sure those work before you go on to something else. Hopefully everything is ironed out, but if they have to address some issues, that will take away from the team battle system being put in, I think. With the team battles, they're not targeting a clan system yet. It's going to be like a ranked battle team league, and I've played other games, MOBAs, it's alright. It's just a very small percentage of the player base. It's not on the radar for most players. We'll see when clans come in. I bet you they're going to have some special event for clans whenever they do introduce them, and that will be a system that comes in, I think, 6 months from now. I think they'd like to target something that's more akin to the World of Tanks territory command system. They just refreshed it in World of Tanks. Maybe they wanted to see how it worked and see if they can use that system for World of Warships. They are actively reworking perks and ship upgrades for the game. Some of them are getting revised this year. Their example was the acquisition range module. This is the module that you have to choose between that and concealment, and everyone chooses concealment because it's just a straight up better module. It reduces the detectability of your ship. 2 different systems that govern the vision of the ship, and the acquisition range module doesn't actually increase the acquisition range that you can perceive enemy ships. It just doesn't. It's just terrible. It's worthless. It's the worst module in the game by far. And there's some pretty bad modules like AA survivability. There's actually concrete improvement from that, where you can't say that about the acquisition mod. It's just so bad. They don't want to ban mods, but they want to keep it locked down to prevent some of these exploitative mods from popping up. Gave you straight up more power, and I'm all for this. I don't like how some mods straight up make it easier. They had that Eagle Eye Vision mod. Hated that. They had in closed beta a mod that had an indicator, because at some point in the history of World of Warships, they actually wanted to tell you where to aim. They took it out because it took away all the fun and the skill, but that code still existed, and this mod exploited that code. They took that code out. The mod can't work anymore, and everything should be better on the aiming front. And finally, there's a possibility that they would put in a system that could allow the player to hide his personal random stats from others. You know, if you want to look this stuff up and judge me based on my stats, go right ahead. If you underestimate my abilities, I love to throw that back at people. And if you overestimate them, well, you've just invested a lot of time to stop me. And I try and stall out as much as I can. You can see it in my gameplay. I'm very annoying to kill, hopefully, except for those times where I make mistakes. So yeah, that's all the new stuff that's on the horizon that the developer talked about. There's a lot of cool changes that definitely were needed. There's a lot of interesting things that they're targeting, and I'm very excited for that stuff. Next week, hopefully, fingers crossed that there's not actually an issue, the Soviet destroyers and the German cruisers will be unlocked, and I'm very excited to work through the Soviet destroyer line in particular, just because I love their guns, and I know what I'm getting with their guns, and I love destroyers. So it's going to be an interesting hybrid between a destroyer and a cruiser. German cruisers, you know, maybe they'll be a diamond in the rough. I hope you enjoyed listening to all the exciting stuff that's coming along. I hope the game itself was entertaining. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.